Jordan Kepler says, whenever Tom has a great accomplishment, I make sure to cheer for him with the enthusiasm of Gus Johnson. Boy, that is an enthusiasm unknown to mankind outside of Gus Johnson. So I really appreciate Jordan and his sincerity and lack of sarcasm.
What great accomplishment, though?
Well, I got the score pretty much exactly correctly, except for the obvious failings of others.
Well, I planned for the bad kicker.
Mm.
I planned for the 2 missed field goals, and you did not.
Did any of you have a shutout pick?
In my bold predictions, I did.
I picked a shutout.
Well,
So
Kevin, please, we're doing a show.
Anyway,
poorly.
So you've got that. I've got this.
Yeah.
So 45-0 Ohio State, as you guys know. You guys saw Ryan Day. You saw Will Howard in there. You just got done watching Jeremiah Smith. Nonplussed, not bothered by setting all these records. You know, it is what it is. I did ask him, like, is there anything that still makes you feel like a freshman? Like, no, but I am still a freshman. Like, I don't want to grow up too fast.
Yeah.
And he did say, I still have 2 to 3 more years here. So,
Tony, walk me through the scenario where Jeremiah Smith has 3 more years here.
well, it would be a long-term contract.
Mhm.
That it would be the richest contract in Ohio sports history.
Unless he gets the Shohei Ohtani contract, but in present-day money and not future moon dollars, I am really not seeing a scenario where he's here. But hey, maybe it's good to pretend.
They targeted him quite a bit in this one, and he was not going to play in the second half. He was done. And then because I asked him, like, were you shut down? They shut you down? He's like, well, I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
And then Hartline came over and was like, I need my ex. Like, I need somebody to go out there because they were kind of struggling a little bit, so they had to get him back out there. And then they went down and scored.
They had that one possession down in the red zone where they settled for a field goal, and they threw the ball 3 times, and it was like, you're down in the red zone. Like, specifically, explain the difference to me between having a red zone possession and not having Jeremiah Smith out there and shaving points. I mean, like,
no.
no one's accusing anyone of shaving points, but I'm saying, like, one is legal and one's not. But why? What's the difference? Because if you're going to throw the ball down there, doesn't he give you an enormous advantage that you're not? I mean, obviously, they took him off the field. They were planning on not playing him. Obviously, this was an intentional decision. But at the time, I was like, What are you doing?
Well, and this was also a game where they played all kinds of people all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So they got everybody in there, and this is what we would kind of ask them to do. And so we can't get upset about them doing it. So, that's how you do. He came out and he had his helmet, but he wasn't wearing it. You could tell, like, how he had a towel over, his shoulders.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And it's pretty crazy and we saw it in the spring game with him, like, you're treating this freshman like you can't afford, like, he's the one guy. We're going to take somebody off. That only one guy wasn't going to play in the second half.
Yeah.
That was him.
Yeah.
To give you just a little bit more of an idea of the value.
Mika said, called the Joshua Mickens sack. Mika, you were the first person. I saw Joshua Mickens get the sack, and I thought, like, before the quarterback hit the ground, I thought, Mika asked about Joshua Mickens on the pregame show. So
what are you going to ask about next week?
Yeah. No. Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
I just need to know who to do the player props once I get to Illinois.
Smart.
No, and then afterwards, after the sack, because they were still out there on the field for a little while, after they finally got off the field, all of the defensive ends and defensive linemen were celebrating with Joshua Mickens because that was his first career sack, I believe. So they were all very happy for him. Larry Johnson was down there as well. So good to see him. And he was trying not to smile, but he was not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah, that was one where nothing will ever match the Cam Babb touchdown in terms of, like, players, the celebration. But I have pictures of JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, Larry Johnson, all coming down the sideline, like all the way down the sidelines of, like, the 10-yard line or 20-yard line to be there and to celebrate with Josh Mickens when he came off the field a couple plays later. But that was very clearly a meaningful moment for him. Very cool moment as well. Also a very cool moment, the Jack Sawyer scoop and score. That was talked to Sawyer after the game. And we'll let you hear from Jack Sawyer a little later on in the show, but that was his first college score.
Mm-hmm.
That was he was sort of a good soldier his senior year of high school and played quarterback at Pick North, he said, ? Our Pickering expert's not paying attention. But whichever Pickerington school Jack Sawyer played in, Pickerington, yes. He played quarterback his senior year because they needed him to play quarterback. So he scored touchdowns then, and he said he played both ways, obviously, a lot of his career, but that was his first touchdown. He talked about scoring, and then he said he blacked out like Will Ferrell in Old School. Said he like blacked out, could not remember what celebration he did. Said he had all sorts of celebrations planned. Had no idea which one he did. Someone told him it was the OH, and it was like, you know what? That's a nice, responsible, safe choice.
Somebody should have lied. So you did the robot, something just really bad and cringy.
Yeah.
Wait.
No.
No, a bad robot, not a good robot.
Okay.
Never a good robot. Yes, Pickerington North there. So I was reminded of a similar situation with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau last year against Minnesota, where they had forced a fumble, and were going to return it into the end zone, but Jordan Hancock got in the way and tackled one of them. And so this time they were sure they kept Jordan Hancock at a clear distance so that he wouldn't get in the way. I saw a question about you guys are talking about Devin Brown there, and I saw Omar Austin ask if Julian Sayin has passed him in the depth chart, because you saw Devin Brown in there first, and then it was like he got maybe 2 snaps, and then he was yanked on a 3rd and 10 to put Julian Sayin in there. And then I told Kevin, it's like, oh, I see they're bringing in the throwing quarterback, and then Sayin goes for like 12 yards on the scramble, and Kevin's like, no, that's the running quarterback.
You're like the anti-Nika.
Yes, yeah. People say it. So no, I do wonder, like, you're not going – we always talk about how you don't generally change the backup quarterback through the course of the season, because that guy's won a job and needs to be prepared to play. But are you seeing enough from Devin Brown right now that you feel good enough about him rather than the potential this year for Julian Sayin? But I just think Devin Brown has seen more. He's seen way more, and things are a little bit slower for him in a good way than maybe they are for Julian Sayin right now. And it's the question that we talked about before, where if it's a long term, then maybe you make the move to Sayin. But in the short term, I think it's going to be Devin Brown until at least a bowl game, if there's some sort of jockey, some position move there.
Maybe. I think the conversation there is who is the safer choice, because we talked earlier in the year about Will Howard not having to win games for Ohio State, Will Howard just having to sort of manage things and play efficiently and just sort of keep things on schedule and distribute the ball. Will Howard is, Cam Ward was probably the flashier pick. Will Howard was the safer pick. And we saw how the Cam Ward thing went today. Speaking of people calling their shots on the pregame, I mentioned on the pregame that my 11-year-old son picked Georgia Tech to beat Miami. So why am I here and not him? Well, he's playing hockey right now, so he was unavailable. So that's why I'm on the postgame show. But I think you're going to probably default to the veteran guy who's the safer choice. If Will Howard goes down in the third quarter of the college football playoff semifinal, you probably default to the veteran guy. So that's the guy you're going to go with, because that's the sort of circumstances you're looking for. So it's just I think that's probably how that decision gets made. But I certainly see what people are talking about with Sayin. We just haven't seen enough right now to be able to say, yes, definitely that guy's better, because you haven't seen him since the Michigan State game. And he looked, he made the play with his legs today. He was 0 for 4, and I don't know how many of those were drops, but it was probably more than 2. So there were, I think there's always a little bit of who's the most popular player on the team. It's the backup quarterback. Well, except if the starting quarterback's popular, and then it's a third string guy who's more popular than the backup.
Skips a generation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The running game today, I thought it finished well, because I think they had rushed for like 30-some yards in the first half. They were being outrushed by Purdue, finished with 173 yards. And I kept saying during the game that they'll probably need a long one to make this running game look respectable, make that average look respectable. But they didn't necessarily get it. Travion Henderson with a 29-yarder. but that came in, I think that was well blocked in the course of the game. So, you do 173 yards. It's a little bit less than last week, but you had like the 12-yard loss or the 10-yard loss with Quinshawn on a little reverse type of action. So overall, did well enough. It seems like it's very hard to just establish the run because the game's just the flow of the game with these Fox games, these noon games.
Yeah,
there is no flow.
Yeah, it's real
It's like, so you can't even like just work up a sweat basically as an offensive line in a running game because it's 3 plays, and now it's 3-minute break or whatever. And but overall, it's good to see Travion get out there, get rushing. But still, only 6 carries for him. Will Howard continuing to carry the ball when he's not slipping. And as you guys saw, I assume you saw in the stream, he said he's going to get some new cleats this week.
I was wondering, everyone's been blaming the turf. I wonder if the good folks in Beaverton, Oregon might have something to say about what the issue might be.
I was going to ask because he seems frustrated by that. And why wouldn't you? Like when just in the course of the game, you're slipping down. It's like, I should be better equipped than this at Ohio State. And so they're going to apparently work on getting that done.
Questions in the chat about next year's Ohio State versus Texas game. Listen, both teams have games that are going to be meaningful moving forward this year. Let's not rush.
Let's talk about Ohio State, Texas this year.
Yeah,
because that's a very real possibility.
Texas this year. Texas handled their business against Florida earlier today. Not everyone is handling their business. Georgia is currently down to Ole Miss at the end of the first quarter. Miami lost. Georgia handled their business. Indiana appears to be handling their business against Michigan. I think this is I know that's going to be a very exciting game. Let's not get ahead of things. Let's go through this game. Next week, people are already talking about the Wrigley Field game next week. I'm really looking forward to that. So
yeah, but we can still continue to talk about this game. Of course, we'll take your questions, your super chats, and all of that. Defensively, I want to talk about the return of the Jack. I don't know how many people noticed that, but it was back out there for the first time since 2022. Yeah. Did we see it at all last year in a game? At least in this form. And so you see when they had 3 down linemen, and whether it was Mitchell Melton or CJ Hicks would be out walking around and sometimes chasing a quarterback or chasing the ball carrier. This is also a time where Purdue is having some very good success running the ball, so they had to get out of it and go back to a 4-man line. And as I'm watching, I'm thinking, I wonder who is very, very pleased about having to move back to a 4-man line because of the running game working out. So you're seeing a lot of experimentation right now in the defense. And the thing that I keep going through my head is you can do that when you've got Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom as your safety valves, literally, figuratively. I keep thinking of it like when these, laboratories where they have all this fire system, they are like the fire system that would come in, like the fire retardant thing that would just come in, or the fire thing that would just burn everything up. The bacterial things where it's just, all right, you've got a really good security system back there, so you can just do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, they are they're like the flare stack on this team. But again, you look at the stats, and it didn't feel like this was a huge game for Caleb Downs. But once again, he's second on the team with 5 tackles, or only behind Cody Simon, who also had a great game. Sonny Styles felt like had a pretty good game. Sonny Styles had there was a play down near the goal line on the left side of your TV screen where Hudson Card is rolling left, and he has a receiver in the end zone, and Sonny Styles is chasing him down and gets his hands up and knocks the pass down or possibly save the touchdown. That's a really underrated play. The Lathan Ransom interception. Everyone's going to be talking about the Jack Sawyer scoop and score and JT Tuimoloau forcing that, but the Lathan Ransom interception, I think that might have been right after the Sonny Styles bat down. That preserved the shutout. I mean, those are big plays, and you look at the top of the stats on the defensive side every week. Cody Simon, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Lathan Ransom. They're up there every week, and those are guys who we spent a lot of time talking about the defensive line because the defensive line has been sort of a big story this year. But man, oh man, the back seven of that defense has been really good.
Yeah, as speaking of the defensive line, how about Edric Houston getting his first career start after about 3 weeks of playing defensive tackle? As discussed, Tyleek Williams was good to go, was available, but they chose not to. And then you put in the backup 3-tech, which is now Edric Houston, which is kind of crazy to think about. But he had some good moments early on, was getting some pressure up the middle, forced the quarterback out, forced Hudson Card out into somebody else to sack him. So that was good to see from there. You get more of JT. And well, there was also the personal foul, but Ram Bunk's his 18-year-old.
Well,
You can't do it.
That's a freshman mistake.
Yeah.
That's a freshman mistake. Guess why he's making freshman mistakes right now? Well, he's literally a freshman. And we talk about that in the context of freshman quarterbacks. If you're starting a freshman quarterback, the rule of thumb that we have talked about for years is that quarterback is going to lose you one game at some point. It's because freshmen they have not seen as much. They don't have the experience. They're younger. No disrespect to 18-year-old boys, but that is not the time of life when your decision-making is at its absolute apex. So yeah, that was a real freshman mistake. Jack Sawyer was asked about that and just said, yeah, well, it was a mistake. You talk to him. He's not going to do it again. So you go back and there's lots of guys who've made silly mistakes like that. Just last week, there was Penn State defense got off the field on third down like this, and a guy sort of stood over. Who was it? I don't remember who the receiver was, but the defense back stood over the Ohio State player. And that was 15 yards, and that gave Ohio State a first down. You'd much rather learn that lesson in this game against Purdue that you still won by 45 points and you didn't blow the shutout. You'd much rather learn that lesson here rather than in a bigger moment later.
Yeah, and it goes to the question from Facebook, thoughts on Jim Knowles flashing the jack. I wasn't impressed. This is a game where you can make some mistakes and you can try those things out and see how effective it is. It had moments of effectiveness, but also moments of, I don't know whose fault it was for letting the running lanes get so wide, but there's plenty of room for running backs to go. So it's the first time we've seen it in a while, in years, basically. And I'm sure they've obviously done it in practice over the past couple of weeks to prepare for this. But this also is maybe just a very basic version of it and if it doesn't work, then that's why you try it this one. You don't necessarily wait until Michigan to find out, oh crap, we can't stop the run in this one. And the ironic thing about it is the jack is to help disrupt the run game, and it disrupted it for the Ohio State defense this time. But it wasn't completely ineffective. But there's still some edges that needed to be fixed there. Sure.
People are talking about the fact that Jackson Dart, the Ole Miss quarterback, is hurt. I just pulled up the Ole Miss Georgia box score, and Ole Miss. We don't love total yardage, Tony, but Ole Miss is currently outgaining Georgia 165-27 in the second quarter. It is 13-7 Ole Miss over Georgia right now.
And that's with Jackson Dart having thrown an interception.
Yes, and a pick six. That's how they scored.
Oh, he was a pick six.
It was a pick six, yes, because that's how they scored a touchdown with only 26
Carson
yards.
Beck, man.
Carson Beck 2-4 for 10 yards, and if you have a Carson Beck Heisman ticket, you can probably go ahead and tear that up.
See if you can cash out.
Yeah,
just go ahead and see if they'll give you anything for that.
I don't think so. Speaking of people getting hurt and things almost being a disaster, what do you think Ryan Day's blood pressure was when he saw Carson Hinsman lying on the ground right before halftime?
Yeah,
because I got to tell you, I had oh boy, that might be the season moment in the back of my head if he was hurt, because they have found an offensive line that works again and is, I think, probably good enough to win a national championship. I don't think the offensive line is at a level where it would, make it impossible for them to win the national championship. So you have kind of reshuffled stuff. You figured it out, another solution. And then you see Carson Hinsman down on the ground for an extended period of time, and players coming over and like kneeling and praying with him, and like, oh boy, that did not look good. And then when I walked by the bench 5 minutes later, he's sitting on the bench, not in the tent. And I put something on our board like, well, he's on the bench. And then boom, he's right back in the game. That had to be, though, a heart in the throat moment for Ryan Day.
Whenever I see one of those, I think back to, I don't know if it was 2018 or 16 or whatever, where Jamarco Jones got hurt. And he may have even been carted off, but then he was out there in the second half. You know, so it's
Yes.
So that one, it looked like maybe he immediately he was grabbing at his knee, which is never great, but he walked it off. And you've got Luke Montgomery, you've got Austin Sierraveld that you can throw in there, but you don't need to go through linemen like Spinal Tap drummers at this point. Let's stop killing people off.
Yeah. So that was an important thing for the Buckeyes today, that they got him back. Trevion Henderson, it felt like Trevion Henderson had way more than 6 carries. This was just, you talked about it earlier being sort of a disjointed game.
Well, it helps when he has 3 catches.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'm thinking it felt like more than that. But yeah, it was just, this was a weird one because they had fewer drives than you probably expected. They had 4 drives in the first half the Buckeyes did on offense. And then they had 3 drives in the third quarter alone and 3 drives in the fourth quarter alone. So, they got the ball to start the second half, so that certainly helps. But Purdue had a couple long-ish drives, but not
13 plays, 34 yards.
Yeah, 13 plays, 34 yards, and lost it on downs. Took 6:50 off the clock, and it was just a little bit of a wonky game at times, and it just felt a little weird and disjointed. And I think some of that is the TV timeout stuff, which is just, I know it's great that they're getting all this money, but oh my Lord, it is absolutely.
I keep thinking that it can't always be a tremendous viewing experience in the game itself, because it's a few plays, then you're sitting there, and then it's a few plays, then you're sitting there, and God forbid they kick off, and now you got to go get another break because there was a 6-minute drive, 2 minutes before, and they've got to get the ads in there. You're asking people a lot to just sit there and do nothing.
Well, and then every stoppage of play in the stadium is sponsored by someone.
Yeah.
Every spot. You could just play music or have the band play. What if you didn't? Maximizing revenue is great. We're all capitalists here, but holy smokes, there is a trade-off point at some point where maybe we don't need to hear about a realtor or a law firm this TV timeout.
Have them sponsor the band playing. Come on. What are we doing?
What are we doing? Great question. All right. I know we have a ton of graphics that we need to get to. We know we have a Jack Sawyer interview we need to get to. Let's just run through this real quick. There's the blocked punt there. We didn't talk about that. That's a significant play from the game. Buckeyes really got going there. But you look at it, and Ohio State really controlled every facet of the game for the most part. 3 penalties was okay. It was another. I didn't get a good look at the Davis and Igbenogson pass interference.
He was riding him the entire way.
Okay.
I thought that they probably could have called holding instead, because he did eventually.
Yeah.
He did eventually let him go. I don't know if it was when the ball was in the air. So there was that one. You had the 15-yarder. There was also another one. It's like they were poorly timed penalties.
Yeah.
Whether it happened on 3rd or 4th down a couple of times, but I'm trying to. When is the last blocked punt for Ohio State? It's been a while. And Ryan Day,
Indiana in 2022, I believe Lathan Ransom blocked one in that game. So.
And Day talked about how they set out to do that this week. They changed some personnel there on the edges and put Mitchell Melton and Caden Curry out there. And then, as he said, they still had to go out and execute, which they did. So now I expect it every game.
Well, we've talked about how it has felt like they treat special teams as just sort of a thing that you do because the rules require you to do it. And it's just fair catch the punts, fair catch the field goal, fair catch the kickoffs, kick kickoffs out of bounds. That's the first time that you've seen a really positive difference-making play on special teams in quite a while. And, this was not a kickstart the game because they're down 2 scores in the second quarter thing. It was early, but the offense doesn't score on the first drive. They get that stop. The defense gets the stop. deep in Purdue territory, and then they get the block punt to score, set up an 8-yard touchdown drive. That's, that is. It wasn't exactly a huge momentum swing because Ohio State really didn't have momentum, for any kind of long stretch. But it was still, that was a big play, and kudos to the Ohio State special teams because that's something we haven't seen out of them a ton.
Yeah, no.
Back-to-back drives starting at the Ohio State 6 and the Purdue 8. That's that is, and then here's the drive chart. They had some extended drives. They really did move the ball. 13 plays, 80 yards, 7 plays, 59 yards. They were able to move the ball quite a bit and just have long, methodical drives. They had a 13-play, 59-yarder to start the third quarter. That made it 24 to nothing. So 3 drives in a row, 1380, 759, and 1359. And then 576, 674. I mean, they scored 5 touchdowns and a field goal all in a row there.
Yeah, and that's all Will Howard at quarterback, and then he comes out, and then they struggle a little bit. Did you want to get to the Jack Sawyer thing?
Yeah, let's hit the Jack Sawyer sound right now. I assume that's ready?
I have it in there.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to let you hear a little bit from Jack Sawyer. He is going to start with talking about, obviously, the touchdown that he scored, and I think it starts with a question about the celebration and what his celebration was after the game, after the touchdown.
Do you get to keep the football?
I don't know. That's a good question. I didn't see the football. I'm going to have to go get one. I'll just talk to Coach Day about that. He might get a call later tonight, see where the ball's at.
You didn't just tuck it away?
I should have. I honestly, I haven't scored a touchdown in 5 years. So when I scored, I kind of blacked out. I had all sorts of celebrations planned. Like the last 3 years, I scored a touchdown, and you kind of do it, and it all just falls away for a second. You don't know where you're at.
What celebrations did you have planned?
I'm going to save that for if I score again. Got to keep those tucked. Coach Day might not be happy with them.
What did you do?
We'll see.
What did you do? I don't remember.
I couldn't even tell you. I don't really know what I did either.
Jack Bryan was talking about how you guys kind of been experimenting with different things, especially from Jim's past. I mean, you guys hit the Jack a little bit today. How is it that this team is able to? A lot of teams can't experiment with things like that in the middle of the year. What is different about this defense that you're able to do that and then hit the shutout like that while doing it?
I think that we got such a veteran group of guys that we've been in the system. We've all played that before, and it gave us a good chance to put some of the guys in that deserve some reps while we give the first guys a little bit of a breather too on the D line. And we knew they weren't going to let anything up because we trusted them fully. So we're just so veteran, and we've been around the system for so long that we know it inside and out. That gives the coaches the confidence to call it.
How different is it for you guys up front than maybe what you guys are doing 3-4 hours ago?
We're just making it simple. We're not thinking. We're just lining up, and we're just playing defense. Obviously stop the run first. So just lining the cleats up in the ground and going after it.
How do you think some of that different stuff you guys are doing up front has propelled you guys forward in the pass rush?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, when you're not thinking, you're playing faster. You're not thinking about everything. So I think that's why you're starting to see more success, up front as well, and with the linebackers playing well too, and the safeties coming downhill. When you know what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier to play fast and not think, and use the technique that the coaches teach us.
Is that a mentality shift, or is that something you guys did schematically on defense?
A little bit of both. Obviously, we changed some stuff, but really it's just line up. Playing football. Coach Day just preaching, getting our cleats in the ground. We're going to line up. We're going to out physical you, and we're going to play hard nosed football.
When he started to come over to defense, he's an offensive guy, obviously.
Yeah.
I don't know if surprise is the word. He's the head coach. He can do whatever he wants.
Right.
What was your kind of thought when all of a sudden you started seeing Ryan Day over with you guys a lot?
We love it. Coach Day, is always fired up. So when he comes over there, it's good. He gets the guys that we're going against, whether it's scout team or, the ones that are going against the twos, working in practice. He gets them fired up. It gives us a better look. So I think that, him coming over and helping on the defense has helped a lot.
There's no you played quarterback, dude. What are you doing over in our meetings?
What'd you say?
I said he played quarterback. What are you doing in our meetings?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, I played quarterback in high school too. So, yeah.
Jack, what did that do for you, though, to make a play like that today, just to kind of, get the fire going, so to speak?
Oh, it's awesome. Like I said, I thank God for the opportunity to make a play like that. Growing up, you always dream about scoring a touchdown on the shoe. Whether I'm playing defense or not, growing up, I've always played both ways. So, I'd love to have the ball in my hands. Maybe I'll make a play. And, to see it pop up like that, I was fortunate to be there in that time.
Were you thinking scoop and score all the way?
Oh my gosh, I was not diving on the ball. You know, if there was someone there from another team, I was going to try to scoop it and score regardless. I'm glad that there wasn't, or else I would have got in trouble if I would have tried to scoop it with someone there. But I'm thankful.
What's come right about this defense? Y'all given up one touchdown in the last 3 games now. What has just come right in your mind? I mean, depending on no matter the opposition, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I think that regardless of what's called or what we're doing, we're just going to line up and we're going to play, and we're not going to think. And, we're just going to react and play and play fast, play physical and play violent. And really that's what's changed in the last few weeks.
So that was Jack Sawyer, obviously talking about his touchdown, but also talking about the defense on the whole. I think Ohio State fans, I know there were probably moments where Ohio State fans were going, hey, this Purdue team can't run against anyone. Why can they run against Ohio State? But I think on the whole, you probably have to be reasonably happy with how this defense has played just on the whole the last couple of weeks. They ended up giving up 2.6 yards per rush, less than 108 yards passing on 21 attempts. So basically 5 yards an attempt, 2.6 yards per rush. Those are going to be winning numbers unless your offense fails to get on the airplane.
Well, and I think the 2 longest rushes may have come in the first quarter or so. So the longest rush you give up is 13 yards. That's a winning number.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you hold anybody under 100 yards, that's a winning number, especially with 38 carries. Like that. They had some questionable moments, but that's to be expected over the course of the game, especially with trying some new things out, having the wide defensive line that they had. I think they were even showing it on the replay on television. Just you got the nose, and then you got the 2 defensive ends way out, and you had some running lanes that they attacked. So credit to Purdue, but still only 2.6 yards per carry. So I don't think you can get too upset about that.
No, I don't think so. Let's hit some questions if we can. Lisa Sims says, so since we play at Wrigley next week, is it the same size as the Northwestern regular field? Yes. The field is going to be 100 yards long and is it 45, 48 yards
53?
wide? 53 yards wide.
52?
53 yards, yeah. Yeah, the answer is yes. Regular size
Maybe not as
field.
much
It is
range.
not the same setup as they had the first time. If you remember, 2010, maybe they played there the first time, and both teams had to go the same direction because there wasn't enough room behind the end zone. They have fixed that problem. This is also the first year where you're going to have teams on opposite sidelines, so it's not 2 teams on the same sideline. This should be pretty close to a normal football setup in just about every way.
I know people are concerned about the walls being so close to the back of the end zone, but there are places where that is the norm. Nebraska, this is, people will look at it and say it's unsafe. It's not all that different from a lot of places. And really, once you get to the back of the end zone, there are so many people. There's nets. There's band.
Right. Yeah.
You can trip over something. You can hit a camera. It's all unsafe. It's football.
Yeah. Well, and I'm down there every game, and I can tell you if there's a wall there, there's a wall there. When they're putting the game plan together this week, they know there's a wall there. They know they don't want people to run face first, and it's going to be significantly padded. But it's also, you can plan for that. You can't plan for, hey, there's a photographer here. Hey, there's a guy with a big parabolic mic who just stepped 2 steps to the right.
Look at Alex Orji last week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Face first into the camera.
Yeah, face first into the weight at the end of the jib camera. That's the stuff you can't plan on because that stuff moves around during the game. A wall, it should be less of a concern. Now, I know there's also concerns about the turf, and they've covered the baseball infield with grass, and it's the first game that's being played there this year, so you would think the turf will hold up better than it will a couple weeks later when Illinois is playing there. I think you may just have to, I know everyone wants to worry about everything at all times. You may just have to sit back and enjoy it. And guys get hurt on artificial turf, guys get hurt on grass, guys get hurt. It happens.
I was talking with Tim and I were talking about the baseball stadium and how 30 years ago you saw all kinds of NFL games on dirt because it was like the norm. You don't see it as much anymore because everybody's all fancy and whatnot. But you would see that until October or whatever at all of the different stadiums because you had the baseball team playing there, and it was normal to see teams running on the infield and going from infield to grass. It's it's what we've always known, but we won't have to deal with it next week. again, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
Looking forward to
Yeah.
it, but everything is as safe as it can be for what you're trying to do there.
All right. Wingman Ted wants to know if I got a picture of Josh Fryer's downfield block for, I think, Travion. They were running north, I believe, but Fryer destroyed a linebacker as a pulling tackle. I think I know the play you're talking about, and the answer is I don't know. I'm not sure. I will have to go back and look at my photos. Generally, when there's a play like that, I am following the ball because that's where the action is for the most part. I have a lot of photos of offensive linemen blocking, but it's generally when it's, they're coming out of their stances and that kind of stuff. That's generally where I have more offensive linemen. Once the ball gets outside, I'm generally following that. So the answer is maybe, I don't know.
Tune in to Buckeye Huddle tomorrow and see the photo gallery and see if it's there. RK wants to know who was the center when Devin Brown went in. I believe that was Josh Padilla.
Yes, it
Who
was.
went in there as the backup, and that is something that Ryan Day has talked about recently, where he's been the backup for a little while now. So it would be him. Although he did say if there was an issue, a long-term issue, they would have to have a discussion. But Josh Padilla has been with the Twos for a while now. So
Facebook user wants to know, is Howard tripping over his own feet or is the turf trash?
he is not tripping over his own feet. The turf is slipping. His shoes may be trashed. But we've also seen other people slipping at Ohio State. And we've also seen, if you've watched college football this year, people are slipping everywhere. I think that's just part of the deal with some of these turfs that they have, and wanting to be as fast as possible and making cuts that you actually can't make and losing balance. So I think some of this is user error. It's not all on the turf. Some of it is cleats. So I think you've got to find the sweet spot, what is the best for you. But we've seen Will Howard fall of his own accord a number of times this year, and he's clearly frustrated because I think he said it today. It makes him look unathletic, and he's like, who among us hasn't fallen on a without anybody touching us and be like, it's not my fault.
Yeah, no.
I promise I don't do this a lot.
Turf Monster, Tony.
Yes.
Turf Monster gotcha. Rusty Jesse says it was a boring game. Glad we didn't pay for that one. It was, I don't know that it was a boring game. It was just sort of.
You wouldn't want it to be exciting.
Right, exactly. This is one where you're happy to have no drama. They didn't hit any real long touchdown passes. So from that perspective, it was not, it wasn't thrilling. It was just kind of, that was a team handling its business, and it wasn't absolutely perfect from beginning to end. But there was also never a point where you thought, oh boy, Purdue might make this a game. Like, not once did I think that. Not once did I come close to thinking that. And in a game like this, that's what you want. We talked on the pregame show. What do you want them to show on the college football final tonight?
Yep.
You want the first touchdown of the game, and then I said, whatever the cool touchdown is. Guess what you're going to see? You're going to see one touchdown, and then you're going to see the scoop and score from Jack Sawyer, and then you're going to put up the graphic that says Ohio State 45, Purdue nothing, and everyone's going to go, oh, they handled their business, and move on with life.
I took video of the stands of the crowd 30 minutes before kickoff, and it was very empty.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody on Twitter replied, well, it's midterms and it's just Purdue. And my response was, it's Ohio State.
Well, but you know what? By the time the game started, the student section was full. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And the official attendance was 103,000, and I think it was a legitimate 103,000.
It filled out pretty well. It doesn't always get filled at the top of South stands. There are even sometimes empty seats there for a Michigan game. But they came in.
Not many.
No, but they filled it up, and so that was good to see. And you don't have many of these left. You've got Ohio State fans have 2 left, and the way things are going, they're both going to be noon kicks, so you're going to have to buck up.
All right. Should C.J. Hicks move to defensive end next season?
He's struggling as a linebacker. He's not very big, so does that mean he has to be the jack, assuming that Jim Knowles is still here next year and is employing that sort of thing? Because he struggles as just a typical linebacker, reading and reacting. So you want him to dictate things more than being dictated to. I don't know. Can he be Josiah Stewart, who's 6'1", 245 pounds? You're gonna have to throw another 10 or 15 pounds on him, and I'm sure he would be fast and good. But I think you've got to move him closer to the line. I just don't know exactly what that is. Could they move to a 3-4 and have him be a 3-4 outside linebacker that is on the edge? I think that's a possibility as well. I think you've got to be more aggressive or allow him to be more aggressive, because then there's less reading and reacting. But once you're back there in the backfield, you've got to bring the guy down. He ran by the quarterback a couple times today. Could have made some big plays in that role. Didn't happen. But
he did have one tackle for loss or sack, or maybe he got in the quarterback's face and forced an incompletion. Maybe that's what it was that I'm thinking of. He did have one where he made a nice play.
He had a breakup. He had a quarterback hurry.
Okay, maybe that was got in his face, and that was
But-
I feel like a significant play.
But you saw more out of him doing this.
Mhm.
So maybe this is a good progression. And he's a guy that can make plays, but has to be more consistent when the plays are there to be made.
Yep. Ethan Maxfield wants to know any tips on Wrigleyville bars and food. So I will say, I know on our board, this is why you need to be a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com. We have a whole thread about this on our board. I will give you one thing to know. Sluggers, which is, if you look, the famous red sign on the side of Wrigley, which they might be painting purple for this thing. I'm not sure. They've done that in the past for the Northwestern thing, but
Is Northwestern the home team? I don't think it's going to look like it.
It's not going to look. Yeah, it's not going to look like it. But I think a block or so from that. I mean, maybe very, very close down. I think it's Clark. What's the stadium?
It's
Clark. Yeah, a place called Sluggers, which is apparently a bar that also has. They do dueling pianos on Friday nights, and they also have batting cages. So if you want to watch Tony and Kevin get absolutely schooled in batting cages, that would be a place to do it potentially.
I was told it was a bunting cage.
I'm button.
Yeah.
Just go to the Cubby Bear. That's where all the
Yeah.
kids go.
So apparently the Sluggers is owned by an Ohio State fan, or it is the Ohio State bar or something like that. I'm not remembering this exactly. So that would be the place that you may want to check out. Yeah, there's a bunch of other famous ones, Murphy's Bleachers, the Cubby Bear, all that kind of stuff. And those are sort of the generic famous Cubs bars around there. But that is a spot for Ohio State fans, Sluggers. So Wingman Ted says, tip for a hungry huddle while in Chicago, 90 miles on Armitage Road. Cuban food, bring your own rum for mojitos or wine for sangria, but absolutely amazing food. Make sure to get yucca fries. Now, I have already thrown out a hungry huddle possibility. A lot of this may hinge on what our schedule looks like, where we are, when we are, where we have time. So yes, we will. Kevin will vote for Pequod's, which is deep dish pizza.
I mean,
yes,
but no.
So we'll see. We'll see where we are when we are. But we appreciate the suggestion.
I was thinking of Pizzeria Uno.
That's it. All you old-time Ozone heads will remember that one.
It's just me, Ted. Is Davis Igbenogson a liability, or do the ends justify the means? I saw somebody else mention it. Yeah, but when he gets pass interference penalties, the next play is generally an interception.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that end certainly justified the means, or the means justified the ends there. You're going to get aggressive play from him, and he's going to – I think – I would love to see Jermaine Matthews play more. I think he's a very, very good corner. And I was telling somebody, like, you're going to get 1 year as a starter out of Jermaine Matthews, and then he's going to the league. But I think they're all three are good enough to rotate, and you're seeing that now. And I think that's another little underrated thing that we are talking about, is that Jermaine Matthews is playing in as close of a rotation as we've seen at corner since Kerry Combs was here. So, but Davis Igbenogson is strong. He's physical. That's what they want. That's the kind of mentality that they want to have with this team. I think you can tolerate a 15-yard penalty every game from him, but you shouldn't have to. Like, they put the mitts on him last week, and they're trying to get him to keep from doing that, from being so grabby. I don't know how you get him to stop, because that's just his nature.
Well, and I think you're also at the point now where lots of pass interference-y holding doesn't get called.
Yeah.
I think
it's also coached.
I think he's at the point where he has a reputation, and you've seen him get called, and officials have remember calling him, and so then you're looking for it. Hey, that's the guy who does this, and that at that point, that's harder to overcome. It just feels like you have the game where you get called for 3 penalties. You get called for 3 pass interference and holdings in one game. Like that's the kind of thing that leaves an impression. It has left an impression with Ohio State fans who are now asking these questions. I'm sure it left an impression with the officiating community writ large.
Ryan Barnett says, any idea why the defensive scheme experimenting was for the backups versus starters? Its effectiveness wasn't great, just meant to put looks on film. I think they did it with starters as well. I mean, now your starting Jack is going to be like Mitchell Melton or CJ Hicks, so it's not going to be Jack Sawyer or JT Tuimoloau or anything like that. But they had 3 down linemen in there with starters as with the ones, just depending on who it was, as far as I can recall. So I think they're going to continue to make this part of the defense, and that means doing it with the ones, doing it with the twos. And I don't know how much they did it later on when they're just trying to be in base and get the game over with. But I thought they were doing quite a bit early on because, as I said before, earlier in the show, you can do more experimenting when you've got Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs back there to secure things for you. So you can get a little bit crazier or just different and see, hey, does this work? Does this work? It worked in practice. Let's see if it works in the game. And if it doesn't, it's okay. We'll clean it up. And if it doesn't, and it leads to a touchdown, we won 45-7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Question from Facebook. Jelani Thurman continues to flash. Tight end 1 next season. I just had to pull up to make sure Will Kazmarek, this would be his last season. So, and G. Scott, this would be his last season.
Well,
so
isn't this a redshirt junior year for Will Kazmarek?
That's a good question.
Because he played 2 seasons at Ohio.
Okay.
And redshirted as a true freshman. So this is his 4th year with another year to go.
Okay, so then he does. So then Will Kazmarek is probably tight end 1 next year. Jelani Thurman has certainly come a long way this season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Bennett Christian's in that conversation as well. And it's just kind of, what are you looking for? Receiving tight end 1? Yeah, I think there's a decent possibility Jelani Thurman is, because Jelani Thurman has come a long way. You can tell he has worked his way into the circle of trust where – he was not the first read. He was, in fact, the last read on 4th and 1 last week, but he was out there on 4th and 1. So that tells me, okay, they trust him. Yeah. And on that play, they trusted him, and then they didn't trust him, and then they trusted him again, and they didn't trust him, and then at the end, once the play ended, they trusted him, and that was good.
He was in the circle, out of the circle, in the circle, out of the circle. But yeah, I mean, for a little while earlier in the season, Bennett Christian had seemingly moved past him in terms of snaps. And now I think they're getting more and more even. And you could see any of those guys out there at any time, which I think it's a valuable tool. But they certainly want to get Will Kazmarek back as quickly as possible. And I'm guessing shooting for an Indiana return for him.
Yeah. Any others that we need to get to? Okay, so let's go. You got a chance to talk to Jeremiah Smith a little bit after the game.
Yeah, talking about his freshman records and setting the now he's got all 3 receiving, touchdowns, and yards over in terms of freshman wide receiver records, beating Chris Carter. He was asked, has Chris Carter reached out to you yet? And he did tweet out, congratulations, but he's like, my phone's been blowing up. So good luck finding the one tweet from Chris Carter in there.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of NFL Hall of Famers are reaching out to me. I don't know.
I couldn't possibly, No, this is Jerry Rice. I'm sorry. This is so embarrassing.
We talked about this at the beginning of the season. We had unreasonable expectations for him. And he's going to break all these records, all these freshman receiving records. When is he going to do it? And I think you said by the end of the regular season, It was like, oh, boy, that's reckless. I mean, I don't disagree, but it's also the kind of thing, like sometimes we think something and we don't say it out loud because it's like, that wouldn't be responsible to put that on an 18-year-old. But here we are.
Here we are, 9 games in, and he's broken all of the records, and he's left. He could have broken them in 8 games, 7 games maybe.
Yeah, and he broke all the records, and today he was the guy who they were not going to play in the second half. Like, they very easily, you can push the easy button. And I thought about him in the first half where he's like, it was 3rd and 17 or something. And it's just like, remember the kids who had the game genie when we were kids? Like, he's the game genie. You just put Jeremiah Smith in your Nintendo, and then everything's easy. And It was 3rd and 17. Yeah, sure, no problem. Last week it was 3rd and 9. Like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. What is that hard? Is it hard to pick up 3rd and 17? It doesn't look hard.
Do you think like Chip Kelly's on the phone to like the Nintendo Power Line or whatever? Is like, what should I do in this game? And they're like, how do I beat this game? And they're like, throw it to Jeremiah.
Do you have the power? Do you have the power glove? That's the first question. Yes. Up, left, right. BA, select, start. That's the Jeremiah Smith code.
He is the Konami code for sure. It's amazing to watch, and he is the most. It is what it is. I had high expectations. I'm not quite reaching those expectations. I've still got time to do more, and has never been like a Devo wide receiver. Like, did you see me out there?
Yeah.
Like he's never been that guy.
Yeah. All right. So let's let you hear a little bit from Jeremiah Smith right now.
The last 8 to 9 games are starting off pretty shaky. Not playing our best game, but I feel like this week we started off fast and left no doubt out there.
What was the mindset coming off the emotional win last week against Penn State?
Just keeping it going. Don't be one hit wonders. That's one thing Coach Day preached us this week. Don't let just one game. We beat Penn State. You see this going around college football that teams have big wins, and the next week they lose to a team that's not as good as them. So yeah.
To have this trio of freshman records, what does that mean to you?
That means a lot. Just a blessing for sure to be able to break Chris Carter's freshman record, but just got to keep it going. No stop here.
How do you keep it going?
Just keep going out there making plays and continue what I've been doing.
Was it good to get back into the end zone?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Did you hear from him at all for today?
Huh?
Did you see his tweet or text or anything?
No, I didn't. I didn't check my phone. I know it's blowing up right now.
Coach has always talked about your work ethic. Can you describe where that comes from? What drives you day in, day out?
What drives me, I say, just to make a name for myself, and I have a little brother. I want to be an example for him as well, because I don't want to be a bad role model for him. So just work hard, and just everything that I do in life for sure.
On your touchdown today, when did you know you had a chance to get in the end zone? At what point in the round?
I didn't know the ball was coming to me. Well, I did actually. They were man coverage, so I knew the ball was coming to me, so I just caught it and just scored.
What was that moment like for you? Did you kind of have like oh my God, I just did that?
At first, I didn't even know until I looked up on at the jumbotron, and then they put it on the jumbotron. I was like, oh, I wasn't even thinking about it. That's how crazy it was. But yes, it was a crazy experience for me for sure.
Do you think you'll be hearing from Chris maybe after the game? Have you heard from him yet?
Probably already did. He probably said something on Twitter already, so I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
How much do you work on timing with Will Howard in practice, and how does that obviously pay off in a game situation?
We work on a lot. Just especially this week, was working on a lot of back shoulders, fades. So we got to keep it going and just continue to make it get better for sure.
So Jeremiah Smith, I'm not sure if it was in that clip, but he was talking about how he's having a good time, even if people don't think it sometimes, like because he's just so low key.
Yeah,
and it's like he must hate it at Ohio State. It's like no, he's just low key.
I'm sure he's having fun in his own way. He's someone who you see him on the field, you're like that can't possibly be a freshman, and then you listen to him talk about stuff, and it's like that can't possibly be a freshman. I don't know if has this been talked about that much, how much Maurice Claret's around the program right now? He was on the sideline during the game. He's been on the sideline for a ton of games. He's really been around the program a lot. I would love to find out how much Maurice Claret is talking to Jeremiah Smith, because those are two guys who have had, that is a very small club, the true freshmen who have been like the biggest star in Columbus on very good Ohio State teams. There are not many people who can have that have those conversations. And, we talked earlier about Edric Houston and learning from a mistake in a low key kind of game like this. Boy, if Jeremiah Smith can learn from more, from someone else's mistakes, can he learn from Maurice Claret's mistakes and how Maurice Claret maybe would probably do some things differently? That feels like that would be, it doesn't feel like Jeremiah Smith has a whole lot of lessons to learn right now. It feels like he's like already past all of that, and that you haven't had the issues, which is why we keep saying he doesn't seem like a freshman. But if you can, I think that the Maurice Claret Jeremiah Smith thing might be an interesting thing for us to talk about at some point.
Yeah, and let me ask Dave about that, because I wanted to ask him about Maurice a month or two ago when he was, I don't know if it was Akron or Western Michigan, when he was out there. With Day at the start of the game under the tunnel, because it is an interesting situation and story, and what are you getting out of, what is your program getting out of Maurice and being able to tell his story and be a mentor and all of those different things. So it is an interesting look, and good for him, good for them on that one. So I think before we go, if you could hit the thumbs up, we would appreciate that. We always do. Thank you for that. It helps YouTube send us to more people. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And if you're later on listening to this as a podcast, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating and review. We would appreciate that. And of course, you can always find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up now, become a premium member. First month, just $4.99. Going to get you the Indiana game, going to get you the Michigan game, and everything in between. There's a bunch of stuff coming, so why not sign up now and check it all out. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.